Tyler Brooks stood in the medical chamber, his hands trembling as he watched the massive albino dragon writhe on the crystalline platform. The room was too bright, too sterile. The walls pulsed with soft blue light that the draconid physicians claimed had healing properties. It clearly wasn't working. Vera, his adoptive mother, tried to suppress her agonized groans, but her golden eyes betrayed the truth. She was in unbearable pain, and there was nothing the most advanced dragon medical technology could do about it. Every few seconds her massive body would spasm. Her claws scraped against the platform, leaving deep gouges in the supposedly indestructible material. Tyler flinched each time, knowing that every movement sent waves of agony through her body. He could see it in the way her pupils dilated, in how her breathing came in short, desperate bursts. The lead physician, a silver-scaled dragon named Karath, turned away from the medical scanner with a look Tyler had learned to dread over the past 2 weeks. It was the look of a doctor who had run out of options. Karatha's wings drooped slightly as he approached, his ancient face showing something that dragons rarely displayed: pity. "Crystalline marrow syndrome," Karath said, his voice carrying the weight of finality. "Her bones are calcifying into crystal shards, cutting her apart from within. The disease is accelerating faster than we anticipated. Every movement creates more internal damage. No dragon has ever survived this condition. Not one in 5,000 years of recorded history." Tyler felt his stomach drop. 2 weeks ago they'd told him she had 6 months. Then it became 4. Now this. How long? Tyler's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. He already knew he wouldn't like the answer. 3 months. Perhaps less. Karatha's tail swept dismissively toward the monitors displaying Vera's failing body. "The crystallization has spread to her spine and ribcage. Soon it will reach her heart. We can do nothing but make her comfortable. I'm sorry, young human. I know she means much to you." Comfortable. The word felt like a slap. There was no comfort in watching someone you love slowly turn into a crystal coffin from the inside out. Tyler had watched Vera go from the most powerful dragon in the clan to barely being able to lift her head in just 8 weeks. Tyler approached Vera's massive head, his boots clicking softly on the smooth floor. Each step felt heavier than the last. He placed his small human hand against her scaled snout, feeling the heat radiating from her skin. Dragons normally ran hot, but she was burning up. Fever was another symptom Karath had mentioned. Her body was trying to fight the crystallization and failing. She'd found him 25 years ago in the wreckage of a human colony ship. He'd been 3 months old, somehow alive in a cryopod while the rest of his species had perished around him. The other dragons had insisted she leave him there. Humans were fragile. Weak. They died easily and served no purpose in dragon society. But Vera had looked at the crying infant and made a choice that changed both their lives. She'd raised him despite everything. Despite the clan elders calling him her fragile human pet. Despite the younger dragons mocking her for wasting time on a species that couldn't even breathe fire. Despite the warnings that he'd die before reaching adulthood because humans weren't meant for their world. Tyler remembered being 5 years old, trying to keep up with dragon hatchlings who could already fly. He remembered Vera teaching him to read dragon scripture because she refused to let him feel inferior. He remembered her standing between him and a clan member who'd suggested they'd test how durable the human really was. She'd nearly started a war over him that day. Now she lay here, dying, and the greatest medical minds of the dragon civilization were telling him to accept it. "Don't waste your time on false hope, my son," Vera whispered, her breath coming in painful gasps that smelled like copper and stone. "Even dragons must accept death. It is the way of things. I've lived a long life, longer than most, and I got to raise you. That is enough." Tyler met her eyes and saw something that shattered him worse than any words could: resignation. She'd already given up. The most stubborn, fierce, protective being he'd ever known had decided that this was the end. She was ready to let go. Other dragons were gathering near the chamber entrance. Word had spread that Elder Vera was receiving her final diagnosis. Some showed respect, bowing their heads. Others whispered among themselves, probably already discussing who would claim her territory once she was gone. A few looked at Tyler with something almost like satisfaction, as if they'd always known the human would bring her nothing but trouble. Tyler looked around the chamber at the advanced medical equipment, at the physicians who'd studied for centuries, at the entire dragon civilization that had mastered space travel and energy manipulation and genetic enhancement. All of it worthless. They'd built an empire across 12 star systems, but they couldn't save one dragon from a disease they'd known about for millennia. But Tyler was human. Humans had been on the edge of extinction more times than their short history could count. They'd faced diseases, disasters, and wars that should have ended them. And somehow they'd survived every single time through sheer stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. He squeezed Vera's snout gently, feeling her scales beneath his palm. She'd never given up on him. Not once. Not when he couldn't fly, couldn't breathe fire, couldn't do any of the things dragons considered basic. She'd found ways to make him strong anyway. Now it was his turn. "I'm not giving up on you, Mom," Tyler said quietly, but with steel in his voice. "Humans don't accept death easily. We fight it. And I'm going to find a way to save you, even if I have to tear apart every medical database in the galaxy to do it." Vera's eyes widened slightly, showing a flicker of something that might have been hope, or might have been fear for what her stubborn human son was about to do. 2 weeks later, Tyler stood before the Draconid Council, his research tablet clutched in his hands so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Behind him, Vera lay motionless on a hover platform, too weak now to even lift her head. The crystallization had spread to her spine, and every breath she took sounded like glass grinding against glass. He could hear it echoing through the vast council chamber, a constant reminder that time was running out. The council chamber was massive, designed to accommodate hundreds of dragons. Crystal pillars stretched up toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. 12 elder dragons sat on elevated platforms, looking down at Tyler like judges deciding the fate of an insect. Their scales gleamed in the starlight, displaying their age and power. Tyler felt incredibly small standing there, but he refused to let it show. "You dare bring human superstition before this council?" Elder Draker's voice boomed through the chamber, making the very air vibrate. His dark red scales seemed to glow with anger. "Your primitive medicine failed your own species. Why would it save ours? Humans are nearly extinct because your science was worthless." Tyler took a deep breath. He'd practiced this presentation 100 times, but standing here with actual dragon elders staring him down was different. His hands shook as he activated the hologram projector. Medical diagrams filled the air between him and the council, showing bone structures and genetic sequences. "Because I found something," Tyler said, forcing his voice to stay steady. "Crystalline marrow syndrome isn't unique to dragons. Humans had a similar condition. We called it fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva. It's a disease where the body turns soft tissue into bone. The patient basically becomes trapped in their own skeleton. And we developed treatments for it." The hologram shifted, showing human medical records from decades ago. Research papers. Treatment protocols. Success rates. Tyler had spent every waking hour for 2 weeks reading everything he could find in the wreckage of the colony ship's database. "Treatments that clearly didn't work, human, considering your species barely exists anymore," another elder sneered. This one had pale blue scales and eyes that looked at Tyler like he was something stuck to her claw. "If human medicine was so advanced, where are all the humans? Why are you the only one left in this sector?" That hurt more than Tyler wanted to admit. She was right in a way. Humanity was scattered, broken, nearly gone. But not because their medicine failed. "The colony ship was destroyed before the treatments reached Earth," Tyler shot back, his voice harder now. "An asteroid impact. Pure bad luck. But the research survived. Gene therapy that could teach cells to stop the calcification process. Stem cell treatments that could regenerate damaged tissue. Could work on Vera. I know it could." Dracker leaned forward, his massive head lowering until Tyler could feel the heat of his breath. "Absolutely not. You will not contaminate a Draconid elder with human biological material. It is forbidden by laws older than your entire species. We do not mix dragon genetics with lesser beings." "Lesser?" Tyler felt anger flare in his chest. "Your medicine has given up on her. Mine hasn't. Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for nothing," Dracker rumbled. "The law is clear. No human biological matter may be introduced into a dragon. The risk of genetic corruption is too great. We've seen what happens when species try to blend their biology. Abominations. Monsters. We will not allow it." Tyler looked back at Vera. She was watching him with those golden eyes, and he could see her trying to tell him to stop. To accept this. To let her go peacefully. But he also saw something else in her gaze, a tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, her crazy human son had actually found something. "Then you're sentencing her to death," Tyler said quietly. "You know that, right? In a month, maybe less, she'll be gone. And you could have saved her, but you chose tradition over her life." The council chamber erupted in angry roars and hisses. Several elders stood, their wings spreading in threat displays. Guards moved closer to Tyler, ready to remove him by force. "This council is adjourned," Dracker declared. Tyler Brooks, you are forbidden from pursuing this matter further. Any attempt to administer human medical treatments to a dragon will be considered a criminal act. Do you understand? Tyler understood perfectly. He understood that the council would rather let Vera die than admit human medicine might save her. He understood that their pride was worth more to them than her life. He understood that if he wanted to save his mother, he was on his own. I understand, Tyler said. But he was already planning. That night, Tyler stood outside the quarantine zone where the human colony ship wreckage had been sealed away for 25 years. The dragons considered it contaminated, dangerous, a tomb best left untouched. Guard posts surrounded the area, but Tyler had grown up here. He knew every blind spot, every patrol route, every way in and out. He'd made his choice. If the council wouldn't help him save his mother, he'd do it alone. Even if it meant breaking their most sacred laws. Even if it meant he'd never be welcome among dragons again. The wreckage looked worse than he remembered. Twisted metal and shattered hull plates scattered across a quarter-mile of scorched ground. But somewhere in there, in the medical bay, was everything he needed. He just had to find it before the guards found him. Tyler slipped past the first checkpoint, moving through shadows like Vera had taught him when he was young. She'd always said humans were too loud, too clumsy. He'd spent years proving her wrong, learning to move silent and quick. Inside the wreckage, emergency lighting still flickered in some sections. The air smelled like rust and old plastic. Tyler made his way through collapsed corridors, climbing over debris, squeezing through gaps barely wide enough for his human frame. A dragon could never navigate this place. Maybe that was a good thing. The medical bay door was sealed, but Tyler had brought cutting tools. It took 20 minutes of careful work before the door opened with a groan of protest. Inside, cryogenic storage units lined one wall. Most showed red lights indicating failures. But 3 were still green, still functioning after all these years. Tyler approached them with shaking hands. He pulled up the inventory on a dusty terminal. His heart nearly stopped when he saw the names on the storage logs. Dr. Rachel Brooks. Dr. Nathan Brooks. His biological parents. They'd been doctors, specialists in rare bone disorders. They'd been working on cutting-edge treatments for FOP when the ship was destroyed. And here, frozen in time, was their life's work. Gene therapy samples. Stem cell cultures. Complete treatment protocols. They died trying to save others. People they'd never met, suffering from diseases that most had given up on. Now their work would save the one person who'd saved their son. The dragon who'd looked at a human infant and chose love over logic. Tyler carefully loaded the samples into a portable cryo unit. He had what he needed. Now came the hard part, actually using it without killing Vera in the process. The procedure was excruciating. Tyler had converted an old abandoned cargo bay on the outskirts of the Dragon settlement into a makeshift medical lab. The space was barely heated and condensation dripped from the metal walls. He'd stolen Draconid medical scanners piece by piece over 3 weeks, smuggling them out during shift changes when the guards were distracted. The human equipment he'd salvaged from the colony ship was older than he was, but it still worked. Barely. The cargo bay looked like something from a nightmare. Cables snaked across the floor, connecting dragon technology to human machines in ways neither species had ever intended. Monitors flickered with vital signs. The gene therapy samples sat in a modified cryo unit that Tyler had rebuilt from scratch, praying it would keep them stable. He'd studied every medical file he could access for weeks, watching old training videos on cracked screens, reading research papers until his eyes burned. These were procedures that took doctors years to master. Tyler was teaching himself in weeks because he had no other choice. But the treatment required one critical component that no amount of studying could change. His own bone marrow. The stem cells in human bone marrow could potentially teach Vera's body to stop attacking itself. It was a long shot. A desperate gamble. But it was all he had. Tyler gritted his teeth as the extraction needle pierced his hip bone for the 4th time that week. The pain was blinding, like someone had shoved a rod of pure fire into his pelvis. His hands shook as he operated the extraction pump, watching his own bone marrow slowly fill the collection vial. The procedure was supposed to be done in a sterile hospital with anesthesia and trained medical staff. Tyler was doing it alone in a freezing cargo bay with nothing but local numbing gel that barely worked. His vision blurred from blood loss, but he couldn't stop. Each extraction weakened him more. He'd lost 15 pounds. His skin had taken on a gray pallor. He barely slept, grabbing an hour here and there between treatment preparations. Vera was running out of time. The crystallization had spread so far that she could no longer speak. Her vocal cords had calcified. She lay in the corner of the cargo bay, barely conscious from the agony, her breathing shallow and labored. Tyler watched her chest rise and fall weakly as he synthesized the human stem cells with the gene therapy his parents had developed. The process took 6 hours. His hands trembled from exhaustion as he combined the components, creating a hybrid treatment that theoretically could teach Vera's body to stop the crystallization. Theoretically. The word haunted him. In practice, if it didn't work, the foreign cells might trigger an immune response that would kill her in hours instead of weeks. He might be murdering his mother to save her. "Forgive me, Mom," Tyler whispered as he approached with the first injection. His voice cracked. Vera's golden eyes found his, and even through the pain he saw trust there. She trusted him completely. That somehow made it worse. He administered the injection into her massive foreleg, finding a vein that hadn't yet crystallized. The needle looked like a toothpick against her scales. He pushed the plunger slowly, watching the treatment enter her bloodstream, and felt his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. For 3 days nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. Vera's breathing grew shallower. The crystallization continued spreading. Tyler stayed by her side around the clock, administering treatments every 6 hours like clockwork. Each treatment meant another bone marrow extraction, another session of blinding pain, another pint of his strength drained away. By the 3rd day Tyler could barely stand. His body was eating itself trying to replace the bone marrow he kept harvesting. His hip bone felt like broken glass grinding with every movement. He'd run out of numbing gel on day 2. Now he just bit down on a leather strap and endured it. Other dragons had noticed Vera's absence. A few had come looking. Tyler had barricaded the cargo bay entrance, telling anyone who asked that she wanted to die in peace, away from prying eyes. It wasn't entirely a lie. On the 4th day, during the dawn extraction, Tyler's hands finally gave out. The needle clattered to the floor. His vision tunneled to a pinpoint. He felt himself falling but couldn't do anything to stop it. His body had nothing left to give. He hit the cold metal floor and darkness swallowed him whole. When consciousness returned, Tyler's first thought was that he'd failed. He'd passed out, missed a treatment cycle, and now Vera was dead because he'd been too weak to finish what he started. Then he felt something impossible. A massive claw, warm and gentle, shaking him awake. Not the limp, barely moving touch of someone dying. This was purposeful. Strong. Tyler's eyes snapped open. Vera loomed over him, and for a heart-stopping moment, he thought he was hallucinating. Her golden eyes were clear. Alert. Focused. The glazed look of agony was gone. "Tyler," she breathed, and the sound of her voice after 3 days of silence nearly made him sob with relief. Her voice was stronger, carrying none of the wheezing, grinding quality it had taken on. "The pain. It's less. Much less." Tyler struggled to sit up, his body screaming in protest. He activated the medical scanner with shaking hands, barely believing what he was seeing. The crystallization in her spine had stopped spreading. Some areas were even showing signs of reversal. The treatment was working. But then he noticed something else. Something the scanners hadn't predicted. Vera's white scales had begun showing something new along her neck and shoulders. Faint patterns like ghostly tattoos just beneath the surface. Tyler pulled up his own genetic profile and felt his blood run cold. The patterns matched. They were genetic markers from his DNA, now somehow expressing themselves in Vera's scales. The treatment was working, but it was changing her in ways neither of them had expected. She wasn't just healing. She was becoming something new. Something that had never existed before. Part dragon. Part human. And completely alive. Tyler was arrested within the week. He'd known it was coming. Word had spread through the dragon settlement that Elder Vera was walking again, moving with strength she hadn't shown in months. But instead of celebration there was horror. Dragons who saw her whispered about the strange patterns on her scales, about contamination, about laws broken that could never be forgiven. The guards came at dawn. 6 of them, fully armored as if Tyler posed some kind of threat. They didn't speak as they clamped heavy restraints around his wrists. The metal was cold and designed for dragons, so the cuffs hung loose on his human arms. He didn't resist. What would be the point? He'd known the risks when he made his choice. They dragged him to the council chamber while the entire settlement gathered to watch. Dragons lined the streets, their expressions ranging from disgust to curiosity to satisfaction. Tyler kept his head up as they marched him through the crowd. He wouldn't give them the pleasure of seeing him break. The council chamber was packed with hundreds of witnesses. Every important dragon in the region had come to see the human who dared violate their most sacred laws. The air hummed with tension and barely contained rage. Tyler was forced to his knees in the center of the chamber, the restraints digging into his wrists. His body still ached from the bone marrow extractions. He'd lost too much blood, pushed himself too far, and now he swayed slightly as he knelt there. Elder Dracker rose from his seat, his massive form casting a shadow over Tyler. The chamber fell silent. When Dracker spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the vast space. Tyler Brooks, you have committed biological contamination against a Draconid elder. You introduced human genetic material into a dragon's body, violating laws that have stood for 3,000 years. These laws exist to protect the purity of our species, to prevent the creation of abominations. You have violated our most sacred traditions. The penalty for this crime is execution. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Which it was. Tyler felt his stomach clench, but he forced himself to stay calm. At least Vera was alive. Whatever happened to him now, that was worth it. The crowd murmured in approval. Some dragons called out for immediate justice. Tyler closed his eyes, thinking of his mother's clear golden eyes, remembering how she'd smiled at him that morning for the first time in months. Then the chamber doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Vera stood in the doorway, backlit by the morning sun. She was magnificent. Her white scales gleamed, the strange new patterns along her neck and shoulders catching the light like living art. Her wings spread wide, filling the entrance. The crowd gasped collectively. Some dragons stumbled backward in shock. She hadn't been able to move in months. Many had assumed she was already dead. You will not harm my son, Vera snarled, her voice echoing through the chamber with a power that made several younger dragons cower. She strode forward, each step deliberate and strong, and positioned herself between Tyler and the council. Her tail lashed dangerously, and Tyler saw more than one counselor flinch. Vera, Dracker said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Step aside. This human has broken our laws. Look at yourself, Vera. Another elder stood, pointing at her with a trembling claw. Look at what he's done to you. He's made you into an abomination. Part human. Contaminated. You're not even a true dragon anymore. The words hit Tyler like physical blows. He'd saved her life, but had he destroyed who she was in the process? The patterns on her scales were undeniable proof that his treatment had changed her on a fundamental genetic level. But Vera's response shocked everyone in the chamber. He made me alive, she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. Something your entire medical establishment declared impossible. Your doctors, with all their knowledge and technology accumulated over millennia, gave up on me. They told me to die comfortably. To accept my fate. My human son refused to accept that answer. Tyler struggled to his feet, ignoring the guards who moved to force him back down. Vera's tail swept out, blocking them without even looking. Her message was clear: touch him and face her wrath. Tyler's voice was steady despite his fear, despite the exhaustion, despite knowing he was probably going to die here. You want to know what makes humans different? We don't accept death quietly. We don't bow to the impossible. We fight it with everything we have, even when it's illogical. Even when everyone tells us we're wasting our time. That's what I did. I fought for my mother with the only weapon I had, human stubbornness and refusal to quit. And contaminated her with human genetic material in the process. An elder with green scales hissed from her platform. You've violated the sanctity of dragon biology. You've created something unnatural. Tyler pulled out his personal tablet, his hands still bound but able to work the controls. Medical scans appeared in holographic form above the chamber floor, visible to everyone. The contamination saved her life. Look at these numbers. The crystallization has reversed by 68%. She can walk. She can fly. The pain that was destroying her from the inside is almost completely gone. Yes, she has some of my genetic markers now. Her body incorporated human stem cells to heal itself. But she's alive. Isn't that what actually matters? Or is your pride worth more than her life? The chamber erupted in angry roars and arguments. Dragons shouted at each other, at Tyler, at Vera. Some demanded immediate execution. Others called for more information. The council struggled to maintain order. Then Vera's voice rang out above the chaos, silencing everyone instantly. Perhaps that is what makes humans truly dangerous, and truly extraordinary. They refuse to accept the limits the rest of us bow to. I have 4 biological children. All dragons. All strong and proud. Not one of them tried to save me. They were too afraid. Too bound by tradition and law. Too concerned with what others would think. My human son, raised in a world that wasn't made for him, did what no dragon dared. You risked everything to save me. And I'm standing here because of it. The chamber fell silent. Tyler saw emotions warring on dragon faces throughout the crowd. Anger, fear, confusion, and in something that might have been respect. Finally, Dracker spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of a decision that would change everything. The council will deliberate. Clear the chamber. Everyone except the accused and the contaminated. Tyler met Vera's eyes as the crowd began to file out. Whatever the council decided, they'd face it together. Mother and son. Dragon and human. And whatever came next would reshape everything both species thought they knew about life, death, and the impossible. 6 months later, Vera soared through the crimson sky of the Draconid homeworld, her wings powerful and steady. The twin suns cast her shadow across the landscape below, and for the first time in years she felt no pain. Not even a whisper of the agony that had once consumed every moment of her existence. She banked left, feeling the wind currents catch her wings, and dove toward the landing platform where Tyler waited. Below her, the newly established Brooks Vera Medical Institute gleamed in the afternoon light. The building was a masterpiece of combined architecture, blending dragon crystal technology with human design principles. It was the first joint human-dragon research facility in galactic history, and it had taken 6 months of intense negotiation, construction, and political maneuvering to make it real. But here it stood, proof that two species could create something greater together than either could alone. Tyler watched from the landing platform as Vera descended, shielding his eyes from the sun. He never got tired of watching her fly. 6 months ago, she'd been unable to lift her head. Now she moved through the sky like she'd been born to it, which of course she had. Her scales now permanently displayed those faint patterns along her neck, shoulders, and spine. They weren't hideous like the council had claimed. They were beautiful, like living tattoos that shifted slightly in different light. They showed her hybrid immune system, part dragon and part human, working in perfect harmony. She'd become something unique in the galaxy, something that had never existed before. Vera landed with practiced grace, her claws clicking against the platform's surface. She folded her wings and immediately looked at Tyler with those knowing golden eyes. You've been working too hard again. I can see the exhaustion in your face. Tyler laughed, running a hand through his hair. Says the dragon who flew patrol circuits for 3 hours this morning. You're supposed to be taking it easy, remember? I've been taking it easy for 6 months, Vera countered. I'm healed, Tyler. Completely healed. It's time to stop treating me like I'm fragile. 47 dragons saved so far, Tyler reported, changing the subject as they walked toward the institute entrance. He pulled up statistics on his tablet. 3 more requested treatment this morning. And it's not just dragons anymore. Species from across 4 systems are asking about the human medical approach. We got a request from the Keltharian Confederacy yesterday. They have a genetic disorder similar to what you had, and their doctors have given up. Sound familiar? Vera lowered her head, touching her snout to Tyler's forehead in their gesture of affection since he was a child. The warmth of her scales against his skin was comforting, familiar, home. The galaxy thought humans were extinct, fragile, primitive. A species that failed and faded into nothing. You proved that one human can change everything. You changed me. You changed medical science across 12 star systems. You changed how every species views the impossible. Tyler smiled, running his hand along her scaled jaw, feeling the slight texture difference where the patterns showed through. That's what humans do, Mom. We survive against impossible odds. We adapt to environments that should kill us. We find solutions when everyone else has given up. And we never, ever abandon family. Not when there's even the smallest chance of saving them. Below them in the Institute's entrance courtyard, a transport ship was landing. Tyler recognized the medical markings. Another patient. He watched as the cargo bay doors opened, and a family of dragons carefully helped another albino dragon down the ramp. This one looked even worse than Vera had 6 months ago. Her scales had lost their luster, turned dull and gray. She moved like every step caused terrible pain, supported on both sides by what looked like her children. Word had spread fast across the galaxy. The human who defied death. The doctor who broke every rule to save his mother and accidentally revolutionized medicine in the process. Now they came from everywhere, desperate families carrying their dying loved ones, placing their hope in a human barely into his 20s who taught himself advanced medical procedures in a freezing cargo bay. The family looked up at the platform, and Tyler saw the same desperate hope in their eyes that he'd felt 6 months ago. They'd traveled 3 star systems to get here, probably spent everything they had on the journey, all for a chance that the human could do for them what dragon medicine couldn't. Tyler grabbed his medical kit from the bench where he'd left it. The kit was worn now, used hard over the past 6 months. Inside were human tools modified for dragon physiology, gene therapy samples he'd synthesized himself, and the protocols that had become standard treatment for what they now called Brooks-Vera syndrome. "Ready for another impossible case, Mom?" Tyler asked, already heading for the stairs. Vera's laugh rumbled like distant thunder, a sound of pure joy that Tyler had missed during those dark months when she was dying. "With you? Always. Show them what humans can do." As they walked together toward the medical bay, human and dragon, son and mother, Tyler thought about how far they'd come. The council had eventually pardoned him, though some elders still glared at him during official functions. The laws had been changed, carefully rewritten to allow cross-species medical treatments under specific circumstances. Vera's hybrid genetics had been studied extensively and declared stable, even beneficial. She was healthier now than she'd been in decades. And every day more patients arrived. Every day Tyler got to prove that humans belonged in this galaxy. That they had something valuable to offer. That their stubborn refusal to accept defeat was a strength, not a weakness. The galaxy watched and learned a truth they'd forgotten in the centuries since humanity scattered. Humanity's greatest strength was never their technology or their weapons. Those things came and went, rose and fell with civilizations. No, humanity's real power was something deeper, something that couldn't be destroyed or taken away. It was their stubborn, illogical, beautiful refusal to let the ones they loved slip away into the dark. Even if it meant breaking every rule. Even if it meant sacrificing everything. Even if it meant rewriting the very laws of nature itself. That was what made them dangerous to the established order. That was what made them extraordinary in a galaxy that had grown comfortable with limitations. And that was what made them human in the best possible way.